An entrepreneur has to write a business plan because he has to think everything through. However, when it comes to the execution, the plan will be wrong. He will hand over the business plan to his investors, even knowing this is going to be wrong. And the investors know that, especially if you have angels, because they've gone through that. And these angels, they would like to discuss the plan with you. And the way they discuss it is that they want to get a feeling if you are able to react as an entrepreneur, if you can deal with the uncertainty, if you can answer the question of what if this happens, what do you do then? So it makes a lot of sense to do some stress tests to understand what might change when the surrounding, the environment, whatever goes wrong, goes in different direction. And this is why a stress test, first of all, should be part of every business plan. But what do you do in there? First of all, what you do is you'll try to understand what could happen to your plan. So you build a plan in some scenario and then you play around with them. And this provides you with confidence that even if something goes wrong, and your business can be successful. And this is also how you can convince the investors that it's worth putting money into this kind of business, because this money won't be lost under various conditions. So it simulates the development of a startup in various ways, as you can see in the picture over here. Maybe we can look at a corporate setting in order to understand what the stress test could be. Michael Jarrett once said 60% of strategy execution fails, and he proposes some kind of stress test. He says there are 6 points you can do in tackling a new business out of some kind of more corporate setting. So maybe the uncertainty is not that high as you face them as an entrepreneur. And the 6 points are: the first question, do you have a viable strategy? So do you know where to go, at least at the very beginning? Even as an entrepreneur, even if you say, I can't predict, do you know where you'd like to end up? If everything goes right, do you know where you like to end up? Do you have an implementation for that? Why is it so important to really rethink everything in that kind of detail? Because it helps you once to understand what it means with the one strategy, how to implement that, how much money does it cost, and so on. Because at the very end, your failure will be a failure out of one detail of lead times to sell are higher or lower or whatever, but not a general strategy. The third question is, what are hidden barriers? Are there industry's characteristics, also for entrepreneurs, that might affect your business? Like payment systems. Is it easy to go into the payment market when you have banks on the one hand, and credit card organizations, and on the other hand? So it's a tough business. Maybe there are barriers that you won't let you in. Or when you like to put a new beverage into the market, how do you normally sell beverages? What are the barriers there for implementation? And if you think that through once, you know what it means, at least for that strategy. Maybe you have a different strategy then, but this is exactly what you want to do, is rethink different scenarios. How do you overcome these barriers? So the next step. And what are the critical skills necessary, at least at the very beginning of your business? However, then, and the most important point is the continuous learning systems. So do you have a continuous learning system that helps you to always renew your business in order also to be able to beat the uncertainty? Learning is the most important thing you do in a startup in the very, very first days and weeks and years in order to develop your business, because you have to find your niche, you have to find your product, you have to find your market, you have to find your product market combination, and so on. What does it mean for a startup? Well, you can start with a financial model. And what you do is you have an idea for your strategy, and then you build your financial model. And as we said, you build your financial model with the main assumptions. And this is the first layer in Excel. And then you need a second layer in Excel where you model all the numbers and you combine those two. And then you play around with your assumptions. And what you can see is, how do my numbers change? And what is a critical change for my numbers? And this is how you get prepared. So what happens if I only have 50% expected sales and 150% expected costs? Scenario one, which could be worst case, is the business still profitable then? Or maybe it's not profitable. How much time do I need to make it a profitable business? Am I able to survive? And if you're able to survive, you're prepared for that scenario. So scenario two is 100%. Scenario three is even exceeding your expectations, which is then the best case. And these are only examples. So sales and cost is probably the easiest examples. Maybe your critical driver is lead time until you sell something, because it defines working capital and all sorts of things. Or something else, market penetration, market development, and so on. So try to get an understanding for the main drivers, not only for yourself, but also because this is, in most cases, the main discussion which you will have with your business angel or potential capitalist in general. Because what they do is they ask you those questions. What happens if a competitor comes in and he only charges half the price? Are you able to survive? And then you might want to have an answer for that. And if not for the angel, you might want to have an answer for yourself, because you dedicate your time to that venture. This is really the most important thing when you started building your business plan in general. Thinking in scenarios, because that makes you an entrepreneur. That makes you prepared for what could happen. And actually then you don't go that much of a risk, because you know what could happen, because you rethought everything with scenarios, and then it's just a no-brainer for you to change from track A to track B. So what are the key rules then for a investor pitch? Well, you start with the assumptions consistent with your strategy. You have the financial projections. You can change the financial projections. Ideally, they show some hockey sticks sooner or later. And it also helps you to find the right degree of optimism during the budgeting process. It also, to a certain extent, helps you to do your own decision in order to step into the business and say, this is the one I'd like to found, and this is the one I'd like to make successful.